Good evening, visitors, and welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Dan Hiscock, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Warrant Officer Corey McGregor. This evening we are honoured to acknowledge His Excellency Dr. Ali Krishan, Ambassador of Jordan to Australia, accompanied by Brigadier General Dahir of the Royal Jordanian Air Force, Lieutenant General Nina Armagno, Director of Staff, United States Space Force, and Lieutenant General John Shaw, Deputy Commander, United States Space Force, and Air Vice Marshal Paul Godfrey, Commander, United Kingdom Space Command, and their accompanying delegations. As always, we welcome the veterans who have served, those still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial and students from Lithgow Public School in New South Wales and Sacred Heart School from Victoria. If you are able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. If you wish to and you're able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read just one of the stories from the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for Australia in war and on operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Corporal Clarence Rupert Roberts. Clarence Roberts, known as Clary, was born on the 7th of March 1894 to John and Emma Roberts of Mount Egerton, Victoria. His father was a timekeeper at the old Egerton mine. Clary was educated at Pleasant Street State School in Ballarat, where he grew up and went on to work as a draftsman for Mr. Coltman, a timber merchant. Clary was a member of the Ballarat Harrier Club and the local rowing club. Clary Roberts enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force shortly after the outbreak of war in August 1914, together with a number of his mates from the Ballarat Rowing Club. They underwent a period of training in Australia before leaving for active service in October 1914 in the same company of the 8th Battalion. The 8th Battalion first sent to Egypt, where the men continued training in the desert for some months. On the 25th of April 1915, the 8th landed on Gallipoli as part of the second wave, helping to fortify the shaky perimeter over the following days. In early May, the battalion was sent south to Cape Helles and took part in an attack against the village of Corithia, which failed with heavy casualties. One of Clary Roberts' mates from the Ballarat Rowing Club, David Muir, later wrote, "It is wonderful how the rowing club fellows have got out so lightly. There has not been a first-line job that they have not been in. Of our battalion that landed here on April 25th, only about 180 are left. So you will see that we have been well in front, but we must not crow, as there is something big coming off in the next couple of days, and we'll be in the firing line for the next couple of weeks yet." Private Roberts made an able soldier. As Muir wrote, "If ever a fellow made good at their job, he did." Not long after the Battle of Corithia, there was what Muir described as a scramble for stripes, as a result of which Roberts was promoted to corporal. Roberts wrote home to say that he had received shrapnel wounds on the ear and the thigh at some point, but these only required first aid treatment and did not necessitate his retirement from the fighting line. In early August 1915, the Allies launched a series of attacks in an effort to break the stalemate in Gallipoli. While the 8th Battalion did not take part in operations, it played an important defensive role. On the 7th of August, the day after the Battle of Lone Pine began, the 8th Battalion's war diary records that their trenches were subjected to terrific shell fire. Over 300 shells day and night. The trenches were levelled. Corporal Clarence Roberts was one of 17 men wounded by the same shell during the bombardment. He was picked up by a mate from Ballarat, Jack Cameron, and another man. Cameron later wrote, "You can't imagine what a hero he was. His right leg only hanging by a thread, and his hair and clothes were practically burnt off. As soon as he saw me, he said, 'Hello, Jack. They have blown my leg off, but it does not matter. I might have been killed.'" Roberts was evacuated from the peninsula and taken to hospital on Malta. While there, his wounds became septic, and he died on the 13th of August 1915. He was buried in the Pieta Military Cemetery. Clary Roberts' brother also served in the First World War. He later wrote, "I was one of the very fortunate ones, whilst abroad, to be able to visit my brother's grave in Malta in 1915 and 1916. And it was a great comfort to my mother then to know I had seen where he was buried." His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, amongst almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War, beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Corporal Clarence Rupert Roberts, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old as we the left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We'll leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub of Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they'll be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support of the Memorials Development Project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.